Special Fondness. Chapter 21. Pit-pat. The sound of dripping water occasionally entered his ear as Fang Sui slowly woke up. When he opened his eyes, he felt a splitting headache with his vision blurry. After a while, the swaying scenes he saw overlapped with each other. It was dark all around him as he looked carefully and learned that he seemed to be inside a cave. Water dripped slowly from the rock wall of the cave, making the air humid and cold. No wonder he felt a little cold even in the middle of summertime. Fang Sui endured the headache and tried to recall that before waking up, he was obviously still in the Tang mansion. At that time when Tang Qiaoyuan left with Bai Ping, he was sitting under the tree and waiting by himself. He closed his eyes to rest and never had the slightest thought to be on guard against anything. After an indeterminate amount of time, he became vaguely aware that someone came near him. He had yet to open his eyes when Fang Sui suddenly smelled a pungent odor. Immediately afterwards, he felt his whole body went soft and he lost consciousness very quickly. By the time he woke up, he was already in this unfamiliar place. Indistinct voices could be heard outside of the cave. Fang Sui understood that he must have been kidnapped by some villains. He sat up, took a look around and discovered that he had nowhere to hide. This cave is very shallow, but the inside was spacious and empty. If someone stood at the entrance of the cave and looked inside, no matter where the person in the cave hides, they would not escape his sight. Not being able to hide and also not knowing how to run away, Fang Sui looked up at the sunlight pouring at the entrance of the cave. His mood became heavy as he felt that the sunshine this time forebode disasters rather than blessings. The drug in his body was still in effect, making him felt a little weak. He leaned his back against the wall of the cave and sat up, and used the temperature of the cold water to force himself into alertness. Just when he was trying to find a place where the rock wall was not too wet, someone walked in from outside of the cave. "Yo, woke up!" The person who came in turned his head and called out, "Dagur, the person has woken up." Note, Dagur refer to eldest or big brother, might be related or not. He let out a shout and a few more people walked in from outside of the cave. Someone came in who appeared to be the leader. After he crossed gazes with Fang Sui, he deeply frowned and with obvious impatience, spitted out a swear words to complain, "Fuck! How come he woke so quickly? Lao you old fucker! What kind of sedative did you buy?" "It's all the same," the so-called Lao chuckled self-deprecating as he tried to flatter and pacify. "Why buy expensive drugs? Didn't we still manage to kidnap the person out of the mansion?" The leader glared at him angrily and didn't bother to argue with him. He walked towards Fang Sui instead. Fang Sui's heart almost stopped beating as he stepped back. He moved until there was no more gap left between the rock wall and his body. He stopped and forced himself to calm down as he looked back at the leader. The leader squatted down, his rough hand held Fang Sui's jaw and lifted his face as he spoke threateningly, "If you don't want to suffer, then better stay put. Otherwise, this Lao Sui can make you wish you were dead instead." Upon hearing him threaten his life, Fang Sui calmed down instead as he asked, "Is there a grievance between you and myself?" The person in front of Fang Sui stared at him. Although the person appeared to be cold-blooded, there was no hatred in his expression. Thinking about it, he shouldn't be someone he had enmity with or any grudge. Fang Sui thought about it, then tried to probe around. "Did Qin Meiwan sent you?" That person let out a deep laugh. He didn't reply, but he loosened his grip. Fang Sui's jaw was pinched so hard to the point of pain. Then he heard him sneer, which was an answer itself. But the other man seemed to be less smart. Upon observing the situation, he laughed out loud and exclaimed, "Dagur, he is quite smart. Say less shit." As the leader roared, Lao hurriedly smiled and nodded as he asked, "Dagur, when do we get to work?" "Wait a little more. Qin Meiwan still owes us 3 a big sum of money. Wait until Lao San bring up the silver, then we will do it." "But Dagur, did she said that we can only get the silver once the job is done?" Lao asked again, "Didn't we take payment before taking the job?" "This is the rule." "What rule, you fart?" The leader stood up and walked back to his place, hating that the iron could not turn into steel at once. He rolled his eyes and spoke furiously, "Who do you think Tang Qiaoyuan is? It has been only half a day and Linzhou City was already turned over and over again. Do you think that once we have done the work and go back to take the money, we would be able to get out of the city alive? This time, it's a deal that really flirts with death. Who the fuck are going to obey the rules?" Lauer had a sudden realization and repeatedly nodded his head in agreement. The conversation between these two was heard by Fang Su, who maintained his composure as the hope in his heart secretly increased. Having heard that Tang Qiaoyuan was looking for him tirelessly, he must struggle to survive even if it was in vain in order to not let Tang Qiaoyuan down. In the meantime, the situation inside Linzhou City was indeed chaotic. Most of Tang Qiaoyuan's subordinates were fierce and vicious. They had been divided into several groups and they didn't bother to be conspicuous. Despite that, no one was able to find a single trace of Fang Su. Tang Qiaoyuan personally rode a horse and searched himself. He went around the mountains outside the city, but the mountain trails had many twists and turns, with many of them inaccessible. His efforts were futile in the end. As the sunset approached, he became more scared that Fang Su would be in worse danger, as most heinous crimes were committed during the dark of the night. Tang Qiaoyuan revealed a grim expression. He didn't dare to think deeply about Fang Su's current situation. He was worried that he might imagine all sorts of things that would make him suffer a mental breakdown. His heart was tearing up with anxiety. It was laughable how back then he talked about feelings developed over time. He obviously didn't lose even a bit of that initial emotions, so how could it have lessened or start from the beginning when he had already grown deep-rooted affection since a long time ago? No matter what the causes were, Fang Su have become the only one in his heart from the very beginning. Once his heart settled on this, there was no way it could be erased. This was the person that was deeply embedded in his heart. If he was to encounter any mishaps, Tang Qiaoyuan didn't know how he would face it. The more he thought about it, the more turmoil it added to his mind. The sound of horse hooves didn't take any break and continued to ramble in the mountain. At the beginning, the man on the horseback could still pull the rein to lead the way, but at this point, he almost felt numb as his gaze stared blankly ahead until the tired horse took the turn back on its own and returned him back to the city. Outside of the Tang mansion's entrance, Bai Ping was waiting anxiously for news all along. Half a day had passed since then, but she hadn't heard any words that would give her peace of mind. When she saw Tang Qiaoyuan arrived slumping back, she hurriedly went to pull the horse. Tang Qiaoyuan returned to his senses. He turned and got on the ground, harboring the tiniest hope as he asked, "Is there any news?" Bai Ping frowned and shook her head negatively. Tang Qiaoyuan's Adam apple slightly trembled as he whispered in self-reproach, "I left him twice in the mansion and both times, he came to harm. Is a Tang mansion like this cannot even keep him safe?" Bai Ping didn't know what to say, she could only do her best to comfort him. "Master, do not worry, Madam will surely come back safe and sound. The city is still being repeatedly combed through." Tang Qiaoyuan lifted his eyes. "What about the people outside the city? They are also still looking around. Leave only a small amount of people inside the city, let the rest go outside the city. With the complexity of outside's roads and mountain trails, we will be able to search even more precisely with more people." Bai Ping complied with a bow, then hurriedly passed down his instructions, ordering people to rush out of the city. After the appropriate arrangements were made, she hesitated to speak as she wanted to persuade Tang Qiaoyuan to return back to the mansion to have a meal and get some rest. Unexpectedly, just as she was about to speak, she heard a trembling voice behind her. Bai Ping turned around and saw that it was one of the two new girls who came looking for her. The young maiden's eyes bore fear as she saluted very carefully and cautiously, then called out, "Master, Sister Bai Ping. What is the matter?" Bai Ping asked. The young maidservant didn't dare to raise her head as she replied timidly, "Sister Bai Ping, actually before the lady cousin was locked in, this servant once saw her in the west of the city. At that time, she was talking to 3 men in an alley. This servant recognized one of them. It was the well-known ruffian Li of the West. Bai Ping was stunned when she heard and couldn't help but scold angrily, "Why didn't you tell me earlier? I have already told you before to let me know whenever you see Qing Mei Wan do anything. Were you not listening properly?" The maid immediately fell to her knees in fright and begged urgently, "Sister Bai Ping, please have mercy on me. This servant is scared. This servant's home is in the west of the city. I was afraid of retaliation from that ruffian Li, so I didn't dare say anything." Bai Ping was about to lose her temper again when Tang Qiaoyuan raised his hand to stop her. He bent over to pull the maidservant up from the ground and suppressed the urgency in his heart as he asked, "What else?" The maid shook her head with lowered eyes. Tang Qiaoyuan asked patiently, "Think again, if it was these 3 ruffians who were the ones who took Madam, where would they take him? Just talk and I promise that your family will never suffer any retaliation. If we can find the Madam with this, I will even give reward to your family." As the maidservant received his promise, she became a little more courageous. She nodded her head and tried her best to think about it, but since she was still a little afraid, her thoughts were in chaos. It took a long while before she answered with uncertainty. "It should be outside the city. This servant only knows that if they receive any money, these people with ruffian Li would definitely buy food and wine before they would hide themselves in the mountains to make revelry all night long. They have too many enemies within the city. They are afraid that their enemies would take advantage once they got drunk, so they would never dare to be openly unrestrained within the city." "Which side of the mountain?" The maidservant shook her head as she said, "This servant really doesn't know." Tang Qiaoyuan's heart was beating very fast. He thought that after having been searching in the mountains for so long, he may finally be able to find Fang Sui soon. But at this instant, he was extremely annoyed. He turned around once again to get on his horse and sped to the outskirts of Linzhou city. Except for those who were already searching in the mountains, new troops also rushed toward the foot of the mountain one after another. Tang Qiaoyuan stopped his horse for a moment, raised his head to look at the dusk, and commanded loudly, "Everyone go inside the mountains, and search every inch of it. Whoever found the madam before nightfall will be heavily rewarded." "Yes, master." The crowd responded in unison, then they scattered to rush inside the mountains. Tang Qiaoyuan rode on his horse up the mountain trail, with a heart full of humble prayers. He hated himself for not having lit an incense stick to Buddha in the past and could only hope for Fang Sui to be safe and sound. When they return home, he will definitely take him to the temple to kowtow devoutly. End chapter. Special Fondness. Chapter 22. The sky turned dark as the shadow of the moon was emerging. Time didn't wait for anyone. Under the moonlit night, the people who were searching for Fang Sui all over the mountain became more and more flustered and impatient, with even the 2 gangsters who kidnapped him were also getting irritated. Fang Sui hadn't drank any water for more than half a day, his mouth was parched and his tongue scorched. He pursed his lips as he secretly listened to the conversation between the 2 people. The first voice came from the leader as it was foul-mouthed as he cursed, "Where the fuck is Lao San? Did he drop dead somewhere?" Lao Er heard that and also found it strange. He first muttered, "Don't tell me that he stole the money and ran away." He got scared as soon as his words fell. He thickened his face's skin and let out a laugh, and hurriedly comforted the leader. "Don't worry, Dagur. Didn't you say that this matter was a well-kept secret with no one else in the city in the know? For all you know, maybe Lao San had yet to see Qin Mei Wan. Perhaps he was waiting for the night to fall before making any move." The leader acquiesced with a low grunt and found that it made some sense. Only then did he relaxed, "Then let's wait some more. The sky is going to turn dark anytime soon. Once he has arrived, we will make a move. After that, we have to deal with it cleanly. The 3 of us can leave Linzhou then. That sum of money is enough for us to live unrestrained for the rest of our lives." Dagur is right. Lao Er repeatedly echoed as he raised his head to look at the moon. After the day turned into the night, his mind began turning again as he moved his eyes and probed by saying, "Dagur, that Lao San hasn't returned yet? The one inside won't be breathing in a while. Won't it be a waste if we kill him just like this?" The leader squinted his eyes when he looked at him. "What the fuck else do you want to do?" Hee hee, Lao Er licked his lips and let out an evil and obscene laugh. "Soft and smooth skin, it's better than those in Gulan courtyard. Look at you, which one of those at the brothel doesn't have a softer and smoother skin than he does? What's the fun of sleeping with a guy? Dagur, it's you who isn't aware. There's much fun to it." The leader waved his hand and couldn't be bothered to nag at him. He took a few steps forward in disgust as he spoke without even turning around. "Whatever you want to do it quickly. Lao Sui is going to wait for Lao San here." "Okay." Lao Er then let out a wretched laugh, turned around, and happily ran into the cave. All the exhaustion and drowsiness in Fang Su's brain disappeared in an instant. He couldn't hear everything clearly inside the cave, but it was enough for him to perceive the speaker's intent. He became very vigilant at once, looking at the moonlight in the entrance of the cave with guarded eyes. The shadow appeared in his sight. Fang Su moved to the side along the rock wall as bile rose from his stomach. His palms subconsciously groped around the wet ground looking for something to defend himself. After a while, he held a piece of broken rock in his hand and could only regard this as the only thing he could rely on. Lao Er was letting out a low lascivious smile. He hadn't fully walked inside when he already started to loosen the belt of his clothes, with a very impatient look. Fang Su raised his eyes to look at him, but the light inside was really too dim that he could not make out the man's facial features. He could only see a heavy shadow. He twisted and fumbled with the stone in his hand, turning the slightly sharp part of it outwards. "Stay away from me!" Fang Su's throat was dry, making his voice hoarse. Lao Er had already untied his belt and did not heed his words at all. Instead, he rushed towards him, breathing heavily as he said, "The person that Tang Chiao Yuan likes, let me also have a taste. Don't struggle, let's quickly be done with it and you won't get hurt too much." His words died away and his mouth went to bite that pair of lips. Fang Su turned his head in disgust and the side of his face got a patch of sticky saliva. Lao Er did not fuss about his dodging movement and seized this opportunity to rub at his neck. Fang Su gritted his teeth as he endured it while he slowly raised his left hand and touched the position of the back of his head. He didn't know where he got the decisive courage, but he closed his eyes as his other hand quickly grabbed the stone and hit the other man with it. He didn't dare to hesitate as his survival instinct kicked in. Everything happened so fast and the great strength he exerted was so unexpected that he surprised even himself. The man leaning on him could merely groan and did not even struggle. He stopped moving right away with the body falling heavily on top of him. Fang Su's whole body was trembling as he rapidly gasped for air. It took him a long time before he managed to suppress the fear in his heart. He didn't even care if the person was definitely dead or not. He used all his might to push the body away from him, picked up his sleeve and vigorously wiped the wet saliva on his face and neck. His right hand couldn't stop trembling, but he kept holding tightly onto the stone in his hand. His mind was buzzing. He didn't know how long it took him to loosen his fingers and let the stone fall down. Then in the darkness, he searched Lao Er's body that was lying on the ground as earlier during daytime. He noticed that the man was carrying a sharp dagger on his waist. Fang Su supported himself against the wall and stood up with a pair of trembling legs. He took the dagger off from its sheath and gripped it in his hand as he quietly walked to the entrance of the cave. The inside of the cave was damp, making it hard for vegetation to grow. However, it was different outside the cave as there were wild weeds everywhere. Now that it was the summer, the foliage was flourishing. It was inevitable that the foliage would rustle when one walked on them, and thus, it was very noticeable. Fang Su didn't know how far the other man was from the caved entrance at this moment. He could only hide and wait as he dared not go outside rashly. He knew very clearly that the other one being called Dagur was significantly stronger. If he faced him squarely, it would be difficult for him to gain the upper hand. On the other hand, if he kept on hiding inside the cave and waited, when that so-called Lao San arrives, he would be in an even more perilous situation. Fang Sui found himself in a dilemma. He was both cold and scared in this dark and dank cave. Just when he was helplessly fretting about what to do, he suddenly heard the rustling sound of grass being stepped on outside of the cave. Someone was running inside quickly. Fang Sui was stunned. He could hear that the person coming was quite angry as he shouted hastily, "Lao Air! Fucking quickly come out!" Lao Sui saw many people searching inside the mountain. The leader ran into the cave and felt that it was unusually quiet as soon as he stepped inside the cave. He sensed that something was wrong, but before he could think too much about it, Fang Sui, who was hiding in the dark, attacked him with a dagger in his hand. The leader knew a few martial arts moves, and was extra vigilant and suspicious by nature. He reacted very quickly and he turned sideways to dodge the attack. Immediately afterwards, blue veins appeared on his forehead as he ruthlessly grabbed Fang Sui's arm. Fang Sui felt a chill ran down his spine and still wanted to struggle against him. However, the other man's strength was too great. Moreover, he was extremely angry as he grabbed Fang Sui's head and smashed it hard against the rough rocky wall. Fang Sui's head blanked out as he only felt the pain after it went through his bone, and black spots appeared in front of his view for a short period of time. Something warm flowed out from his forehead and started to trickle down his face. "You motherfucker!" The leader clenched his hand into a fist and raised it, itching to hit him to death on the spot. At this moment, Fang Sui's head was throbbing and he was starting to feel weak, but he held on to what he had heard, that people came searching in the mountain. He didn't know how, but he mustered his strength towards the hand that was holding the dagger and stabbed at random direction until he eventually managed to stab the other man. The leader felt the pain and cursed. He punched back, but his fist only hit Fang Sui's shoulder. Suddenly, the restraint on him loosened after a while, and Fang Sui then felt that it was the right moment. He ignored the pain from the wound on his head and struggled to free himself as the dagger he held stabbed randomly and disorderly. He didn't even know how many of his stabs actually hit the other man. His was acting on pure instinct and only came back to his senses after a while, wondering why he was still entangled with him. Fang Sui hurriedly turned around and ran out of the cave. The man behind him, who was covered in wounds, chased after Fang Sui. However, it happened that he was stabbed in a vital spot and it was bleeding profusely. The more he ran, the more painful it felt. As he was chasing, the leader's face turned ghastly pale and his body heavily fell to the ground. Fang Sui heard the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground behind him and trembled all over. He gradually slowed down his pace and turned around while trembling with fear. When he saw the motionless body of the leader, he closed his eyes as he felt that it was now safe. Immediately afterwards, the adrenaline coursing through his body dissipated as the dagger fell weakly to the ground. The blood on his forehead was still trickling down. Fang Sui stayed still just like a puppet for a long time, his mind was blank. After an undetermined amount of time, he heard loud voices were slowly coming from behind him. It seemed as soon as someone noticed him, shouts came one after another. Fang Sui couldn't distinguish what they were saying and could only look on blankly until sounds of galloping hooves came in. The person dismounted the horse and walked toward him with hurried steps. Without saying a single word, he hugged Fang Sui tightly in his embrace. Fang Sui trembled slightly and finally looked up slowly. That familiar appearance reflected in his pupils, and yet he couldn't distinguish who it was for a moment. After a while, the water mist that had heavily accumulated in Fang Sui's eyes, mixed up with the trickly blood and flowed down to his cheeks. "Sui, Tang Jiao Yuan's," murmured his nickname, his voice laced with uncertainty. By using the light emitted by the moon to check on his wounds, Tang Jiao Yuan's fingers carefully wiped the blood off his face. Fang Sui heard his voice and he opened his mouth to speak with trembling lips. "Jiao Yuan. I killed 2 men." Tang Jiao Yuan lowered his head to kiss his eyes, with tears went streaming down profusely, and kept soothing him. "Don't be afraid, it's all right now." Fang Sui kept nodding as though hearing Tang Jiao Yuan speak made him feel more relieved. He slowly calmed down in Tang Qiaoyuan's arms as he felt his head throbbing, which made him feel dizzy. He unconsciously relaxed until he eventually lost consciousness. Tang Qiaoyuan felt his heart ached as he carried him on the horse and led the rest of his group while galloping back to the city. It was already late at night, but the main courtyard of the Tang mansion in Linzhou City was still brightly lit. The maidservants in the courtyard were busy replacing clean water and towels. In the bedroom, the frowning doctor sat next to the bed and was currently cleaning the wound on Fang Su's head. Afterwards, he carefully applied the medicine and then wrapped a clean gauze around Fang Su's head with extreme caution. Tang Qiaoyuan gripped Fang Su's right hand. Seeing that Fang Su was clearly deep asleep and yet his fingers were still tightly onto his, Tang Qiaoyuan couldn't help but frown deeper. Fang Su was still obviously very frightened and was still in a state of anxiety. He couldn't help but feel very guilty, his heartache was beyond measure, yet he couldn't help but rejoice with the fact that at least Fang Su was found and returned back within a day. Tang Qiaoyuan didn't dare to think deeply. Back in the mountain, he clearly heard what Fang Su had said with trembling voice, that Fang Su had killed the two ruffians by himself. Fang Su was obviously someone who was delicate and timid. Although Tang Qiaoyuan couldn't imagine how he managed such a feat, he could guess how bad the situation was at that time. If it weren't extremely critical, Fang Su would certainly not take such a risk of putting his life on the line. Tang Qiaoyuan's eyes flickered as his gaze fixed on the blood zipping off from the gauze. He couldn't bear to think of how Fang Su would walk down the mountains alone with such injuries if he came any later. The more he thought about it, the guiltier he felt. His grip on Fang Su's hand became tighter, as if this way, he would be able to hold on to him more. On the other part of the room, the doctor had already written down the prescription. Bai Ping went forward to pick it up and walked out with him in order to get the required medications. Tang Qiaoyuan didn't say a single word as he remained sitting beside the bed, guarding. He sat there for a long time. Even after Bai Ping had already gotten the medicine and decocted it, he remained where he was. Bai Ping carried the medicine as she went forward and spoke a few sentences of comfort. "Don't be too worried, master, Madam has already turned peril into safety." The doctor said that the wound on Madam's forehead is not critical and he is expected to wake up by tomorrow. Tang Qiaoyuan's Adam apple bobbed and didn't say anything. He only nodded slightly and helped Fang Su to stay upright by holding him within his embrace. Then he picked the bowl of medicine and fed it to Fang Su by spoon. Bai Ping stood on one side without saying anything as she waited until the whole bowl of medicine was fed to Fang Su. Then she tried to persuade Tang Qiaoyuan again, "Master should get some rest as well." Tang Qiaoyuan handed her the empty bowl and opened his mouth to ask, "How is Qin Mei Wan? Still locked up?" "Make sure she's locked up properly." Tang Qiaoyuan raised his head and his eyes were blazing with anger. "Early tomorrow morning, I will pay her a visit." Bai Ping complied with a salute. She knew by listening to these words that this person planned to watch Fang Su all night and didn't try to persuade him anymore. She carried the bowl and retreated from the room. Afterwards, only silence lingered in the room. Tang Qiaoyuan carefully laid Fang Su down. Then he leaned over and gently kissed the corner of his lips. End chapter. Special Fondness. Chapter 23. Early the next morning, Bai Ping got up early to personally simmer the medicine and brought it to Tang Qiaoyuan's bedroom. The candles inside the room were still burning. Although the sky was already bright, the person in the room seemed to be unaware of it. It seemed as if he hadn't moved from his position from last night. He was still sitting beside the bed with a lowered head as he gazed upon Fang Su's face. Bai Ping found this unbearable to watch as she carefully walked forward. She put down the bowl of medicine and became a bit hesitant to speak lest she disturb the other person. Thus, she spoke in a very low voice to called out, "Master, it is morning already." Tang Qiaoyuan shifted and turned to look at her. His exhaustion was apparent for anyone to see. "Give me the medicine. It's still a bit hot to the touch." Bai Ping replied as she bent over and scooped the medicine with the small spoon. She thoughtfully blew at it for a while before sending it to that person's hand. Tang Jiaoyuan held Fang Sui up, just as he did last night, and carefully fed him the medicine. Bai Ping watched on the side for a while and felt that this moment was the most appropriate time to let him know. Thus, she opened up her mouth to tell him what had happened late at night. Master, as soon as this servant woke up, I was asked to pass on the message that ruffian Li has already been caught. She stopped talking at this point to look at Tang Jiaoyuan's expression. Seeing that it wasn't too gloomy, she continued to ask, how does master wishes to deal with him? Tang Jiaoyuan nodded when he heard it and actually wasn't in the mood to think deeply about it. Yesterday when Fang Su was yet to be found, he was gritting his teeth and hated the people who kidnapped Fang Su. In his head, he had been imagining countless times how he would cruelly torture them in order to relieve the hatred that he was feeling. But at this moment, he was only concerned about when Fang Su would wake up safely. He was exhausted both physically and mentally, so he simply ordered, "Kill him." His words died down as he silently continued to feed the medicine to Fang Su until the whole soup bowl was finished. Then he carefully laid him down as if he was holding a treasure. Tang Jiaoyuan picked up Fang Su's right hand and kissed it softly. He didn't squeeze him as tightly as he did the night before and only put his hand inside the quilt. Then he stood up and looked out of the window to gauze the time of the day. He wanted to get things done early, but he did not dare to let his guard down. He carefully instructed the girl in the room, "Bai Ping, I am going to the Jade Courtyard. You stay inside the room to watch after madam. Don't take a single step away from here." Bai Ping naturally understood the lingering fear this person had in his heart and immediately complied with a salute. "Master can be rest assured. This servant will keep waiting here." Tang Jiaoyuan nodded upon hearing her acknowledgement. Then he stretched out his hand and used the back of his hand to caress Fang Su's face. Before leaving, that person carefully closed the door and called out a few guards to surround the inside and outside of the courtyard, making it impenetrable. Only then did Tang Jiaoyuan finally felt relieved from the deep regret in his heart. If only he had thought of doing this earlier to keep Fang Su safe, then Fang Su wouldn't have to go through the ordeal he suffered yesterday. Tang Jiaoyuan thought about it back and forth and found that the one most at fault was himself for being lenient with Qin Mei Wan for all these years. If it wasn't for the sake of filial piety, if it wasn't to repay a debt of gratitude on his father's behalf, he should have stopped involving himself with Qin Mei Wan at childhood. Since they were children, he already knew that Qin Mei Wan is never the benevolent type. When the poor rabbit was tragically killed, he should have raised his guard up. Tang Jiaoyan thought things over and over until his heart was in a daze. When he took a step inside the Jade Courtyard, he felt that the place seemed particularly eerie. Although there were many servants standing guard inside and outside the courtyard, not a single sound could be heard. Despite the number of people, this place was so quiet and desolate. Tang Jiaoyuan didn't say a word as he went directly into the courtyard. He pushed the door and walked into Qin Mei Wan's room. The person inside the room still looked the same like she did yesterday, only that the hair at her temples looked more disheveled. She was leaning on the bed in a daze, and from a distance, it was hard to distinguish if she was asleep or awake. Tang Jiaoyuan walked closer. He wanted to drag this woman out of the bed and throw her out. Qin Mei Wan didn't feel surprised as her eyes were actually open as she looked at him with a cold smile. Her expression was extremely numb. Tang Jiaoyuan tried to hold off the words that were at the tip of his tongue as he was afraid that once he opened his mouth, he would not be able to control his anger and he might end up strangling this vicious woman to death with his own bare hands. However, his bloodshot eyes conveyed his unrestrained fury as he looked at Qin Mei Wan. Unexpectedly, Qin Mei Wan laughed. It sounded eerie and ear-piercing. It was hard to distinguish whether she was laughing or crying. Then she cursed in a hoarse voice. "Tang Jiaoyuan, why are you still looking at me like this? Didn't you already rescue that great wife of yours? Do you want to kill me to vent anger on his behalf? Or is it that he is finally dead and you come here to take revenge?" Tang Jiaoyuan stared at her, but he was actually not listening to her words as he was busy calming down the hatred in his heart. Only afterwards did he finally open his mouth to speak with a dark expression, "I have come to kill you." Qin Mei Wan's expression didn't change. She had very little sleep for the last few nights, making her face gaunt and pallid, leaving only a little trace of her original delicate features. She sarcastically taunted, "Then kill me. Were you not supposed to kill me earlier on? If you had made a move 10 years ago, that rabbit wouldn't have to die in such a horrible way. Elder cousin, have you ever heard a rabbit's shriek? You sure don't know how intriguing it is. When I cut off..." Ah! A scream in horror suddenly cut off her words. Qin Mei Wan widened her eyes as she stared at the man whose arms were looming on top of her as he looked down at her. Then suddenly, the dagger stabbed deeply into the plank of the bed and shallowly lacerated her ear. After Qin Mei Wan cried out, she couldn't make any sound for a while as her calm shattered with her chest heaving and her breathing shaky. After a moment, the stabbing pain in her ear slowly spread. With her trembling fingers, she slowly went to touch it and saw the fresh blood on her fingers. She gained back her confidence and stared back at the man, then growled loudly, "Tang Xiao Yuan. Do you really want to kill me? How could you? I am your younger cousin. Your Tang family is indebted to my father." Tang Xiao Yuan's eyes carried along with them a turbulent dark tide as he struggled to regain his reasons, but when she started howling, he waited for her finished her venting until she had nothing more to say. Then he replied empathically, "I indeed owe Uncle Qin a debt of gratitude, but over the years, what you did in my Tang mansion, you should know it better than anyone. I've tolerated you until now for the sake of that kindness. Things should have been balanced by now and that debt should have been paid off cleanly long ago. This time Fang Su has returned safely, but if things turned up worse, then this dagger would surely have taken your life. Qin Mei Wan, today I am letting you live, but from now on, I won't have anything to do with your Qin family anymore." "What did you say? Tang Xiao Yuan? How can you pay it off cleanly?" Qin Mei Wan seemed to have gone crazy. She refused to accept what he had just said and spoke sharply, "If it were not for my father's generous help, uncle and aunt would have lived on the street at that time. How would you even have such a comfortable life now? How can you pay that back?" "You're right." Upon hearing this, Tang Xiao Yuan wasn't affected at all as he continued, "If it wasn't for Uncle Qin's help, my Tang family wouldn't be the rich family that it is now. Maybe I would have become the child of a poor family who wouldn't be able to eat fresh seafood and wouldn't be able to wear brocade robes. But then, I also wouldn't have to worry that the person I love will suffer from poisonous harm." Qin Mei Wan was stunned upon hearing this. Tang Xiao Yuan's eyes were as cold as ice as he spoke again, "I am very clear on what's important and not important, do you understand it?" "No. I won't understand, Tang Xiao Yuan, you can't treat me like this. You can't deny me." Qin Mei Wan continuously shook her head, but Tang Xiao Yuan couldn't care any less and spoke up, "I will order people to send you back to Lu City and will also send people to personally tell Master Qin everything that has happened here." Once these words came out, the room became suddenly silent. Qin Mei Wan's murmuring stopped when he heard how Tang Xiao Yuan referred to his father with unfamiliarity. Her face immediately turned ashen and full of despair. "From now on, if you still dare to take even half a step into Linzhou City, so, don't blame me on what would happen next, but know that even your entire Qin family won't be spared." Tang Xiao Yuan said quite a lot, which gradually vented his anger. He slowly drew the dagger out, stood up straight and stepped away from her as he continued to speak ruthlessly, "Master Qin can consider that he brought up a wolf to injure himself, but considering what I have tolerated up to this day, I have nothing to be ashamed of and have a clear conscience." Qin Mei Wan's tears fell, but her heart was still not resigned. She sat up awkwardly from the bed and her hand wanted to pull him back despite of not having any intention of admitting her wrongs. It was useless in the end, anyways. Tang Xiao Yuan couldn't bear to look at her anymore and refused to stay within her vicinity any longer. He turned around and walked out of the room. Then he issued an order to the people in the courtyard, "Immediately get the carriage ready and send this woman back to Lu City while restrained." Send her maidservants back with her, and if any of them dare to come here again, make sure to not spare their lives." Everyone respectfully responded affirmatively. Qin Meiwan dejectedly sat in the room as she heard his indifferent cold words and became utterly heartbroken. The troubles were finally sorted out. Now that the eyesore was no longer around, the Tang mansion returned to its tranquil state. Well, it was supposed to be quiet and peaceful. Yet the people in the courtyard still felt apprehensive. They were all keeping their heads down and busy with their own chores, especially the servants in the main courtyard, where each and every one of them were terrified. The day was almost done, with the sky starting to get dark again. Tang Qiaoyuan was waiting by the bedside for the whole day. The person who was expected to wake up that day was still in a state of unconsciousness, with his lip pale, and his situation hadn't improved. Bai Ping hurriedly went to invite the doctor to come and check the patient again. The old man frowned while checking at Fang Su's injuries. His movements were careful and was obviously meticulous. After a long while, he spoke with certainty, "Master Tang doesn't have to be anxious. Madam is really fine and should wake up by tomorrow." "Fine? Then how come he hasn't woken up yet?" Tang Qiaoyuan was holding back his anger, though his voice suggested otherwise. "Doctor said yesterday that he would wake up today. But now you're saying that it will be tomorrow. If it is still the same case tomorrow, then what should be done?" The doctor's forehead began sweating, at a loss as to what to do, and could only repeat himself in persuasion, "Master Tang, please be patient and wait for another day." "Master," seeing that the man was about to lose his temper, Bai Ping, who was behind, called out to him and hurriedly comforted, "Madam's misfortunes have already reached their limits. Please don't overthink things." The words that were about to come out of Tang Qiaoyuan's mouth halted upon hearing the remarks of "misfortunes have already reached its limits." He managed to rein in his temper and calmed down again. His heart ached whenever he looked at Fang Su. After staying silent for a while, he whispered to have the guest sent out. Bai Ping bowed and left along with the doctor, and in passing, closed the door of the room for Tang Qiaoyuan. Tang Qiaoyuan put his palm on Fang Su's cheek and felt that although the skin was warm, it was lacking color. He didn't seem to be aware that since he, himself, hadn't slept for days, his complexion was not any better. His body was extremely exhausted, yet he refused to close his eyes. Tang Qiaoyuan only wanted to keep looking at Fang Su, looking forward to the moment when he would open his eyes. He kept this hope up for the rest of the day, only to be gradually disappointed and became restless with anxiety. Deep inside, he knew that Fang Su would eventually wake up, but he couldn't help himself from being worried and afraid. He could not stop his mind from imagining all sorts of misfortunes that Fang Su had encountered in the mountains, until he felt as if his mind was about to collapse. If it wasn't for the fact that he knew to keep his voice down when whispering Fang Su's nickname, he would have thought that he had already gone crazy. "Su-su," Tang Qiaoyuan's voice was slightly hoarse as he whispered to him to alleviate some of his worries in a self-deprecating way. "The doctor said that you should have woken up. But you still haven't woken up. Is it because you are angry with me? If you are angry with me for leaving you alone in the courtyard, then you should wake up and punish me." "It's fine. I will accept whatever punishment." The person on the bed didn't respond as his eyes remained tightly closed. Tang Qiaoyuan bent his lips in a forced smile and didn't know how long he could hold on, only wanting to guard him until he woke up. Another night has passed quietly, the person beside the bed remaining sitting still as a roll. Who knew that in a short span of a few hours, a few strands of white hair would appear on the full head of black hair? It turned out that staying together until their hair turned white would happen so soon. End chapter. Special Fondness. Chapter 24. Time passed. Dawn was yet to break as the morning sun had not risen yet when Fang Su, who had been asleep for a long time, slowly woke up. Tang Qiaoyuan had been standing vigil for so long that his eyes had become cloudy. He hadn't realized what was happening yet until the vision of Fang Su's half-lidded eyes turned clearer and clearer. In an instant, Tang Qiaoyuan came back to his senses. He opened his mouth to speak, but his throat was too dry that he couldn't make a sound. He could only tighten his hold on Fang Su's hands. Fang Su didn't know for how long he was asleep. He only felt an inexplicable sense of fatigue despite waking up from a long sleep. The wound on his forehead throbbed, which reminded him of what happened before he fell unconscious. The scenes flashed in his mind one by one and he suddenly felt anxious again. He subconsciously held Tang Qiaoyuan's hand. Although it didn't have any strength, he meant it as a gesture of apology and called out in a whisper, "Qiaoyuan." Tang Qiaoyuan had been sitting like this for 2 days without changing into his inner robes. At this time, he simply took off his shoes and hugged Fang Su with the quilt between them. He coaxed Fang Su with a hoarse voice, "Su doesn't need to be afraid. You're home now. All is fine now. It's good that you are awake, I've waited for quite a long time." He was talking incoherently, but as Fang Su listened to him, he realized that he was looking at the familiar curtain. It finally dawned on him that he luckily escaped from death. However, it was not because of this that he became surprised with his heart skipping a beat. It was because he heard his nickname being uttered with familiarity again. He exerted some effort to turn sideways as the sound of his nickname have yet to disperse from his ears, warming his heart. Fang Su stretched his hand to stroke Tang Qiaoyuan's haggard face and gazed at him in the bright candle light. His sight fell on the eye-catching oddity on the top of his hair and asked, "What happened to you?" Tang Qiaoyuan couldn't see his own appearance. He covered Fang Su's warm hand with his own and gently caressed it. He didn't get the answer, but Fang Su didn't look away. His eyes were still stuck in that place and was even worried that his vision was just blurry. Thus, he looked more intently at it. Seeing him like this, Tang Qiaoyuan started to wonder. Following his gaze, he reached out and held up a strand of his hair and unexpectedly saw a few strands of silver white mixed in it. After being surprised, he couldn't help but laugh softly and moved forward a few inches. His dry lips kissed Fang Su's eyebrows, all the way to the bridge of his nose and down to his lips where the warmth stayed for a while. Then he replied in a low voice, "My Su refused to wake up. I was bored alone and could only let my mind wander, and thought about the questions in my heart. I thought so hard that even some strands of my hair have turned white." Fang Su could only imagine how anxious Tang Qiaoyuan while he was unconscious. He couldn't help but feel very distressed as he asked, "Qiaoyuan, what were you thinking so hard about so that you've become like this?" Tang Qiaoyuan's words stopped for a moment and looked at him with a smile in his eyes. "I was thinking that with the love potion in my body at that time, how much did I love you exactly?" Fang Su never thought that he would be hearing these words. His body stiffened for a while as he couldn't hide the tension and sadness in his eyes. Tang Qiaoyuan held him along with the quilt within his embrace and squeezed him tighter. Then he sighed and asked, "Did I love you more back then compared to now?" As he stopped talking, the room became silent. Fang Su's mind was reeling as the question rang around his ears. It went around and around until its meaning finally sunk into his heart. He couldn't help his eyes from tearing up with his nose becoming sour and uncomfortable. His wound was already swelling with pain. Combined with such strong emotional upheaval, he was having a splitting headache. It was sweet but it was overwhelming. "Qiaoyuan." There were so much words in his heart but he didn't know where to start, so Fang Su could only whisper his name. Tang Qiaoyuan didn't say much either after such confession and would only affectionately drop light kisses on the corners of Fang Su's brows. The atmosphere in the room was tranquil and wonderful. The morning light suddenly brightened as the darkness outside of the windows suddenly reflected a flash of crimson. Fang Su looked at it out of the corner of his eyes. He felt immense joy as all the disasters and dangerous situation were now finally behind them. He thought about the first time he met Tang Qiaoyuan while they were dressed in red, drinking the nuptial wine cup. From that time back then until at this moment, the period was not that long and yet it was as if the two of them went through 1,000 hardships and 10,000 calamities. But then afterwards, their hearts finally understood that they were meant to be. That they were really supposed to be together. Fang Su was not worried about personal gains and losses. Not only because Tang Jiaoyuan kept reassuring him, but because he suddenly realized that in this world, there was nobody who genuinely loved Tang Jiaoyuan more than he did. He felt fully deserving of Tang Jiaoyuan's sincerity and also deserving of the heaven's blessings. The past disasters could be regarded as a test of fate, letting him have the courage to stay together. The person lying next to him finally relaxed mentally and physically. Due to extreme fatigue, he fell asleep in a blink of an eye. Fang Su stretched out his hand toward him and softly grasped a strand of his hair. With complicated feelings, he held it in his hands to scrutinize it. After a while, when daybreak came, the sound of footsteps came from the courtyard. The room's door made a light sound and the one who walked into the room was still Bai Ping. The young woman was holding the medicine. She halted mid-step in surprise when her sight fell on the bed. Fang Su turned his head to look at her, held a finger to his lips and crinkled his eyes in a smile at her. Bai Ping carried the bowl of medicine and stood still on the spot for a moment. Shortly afterwards, she smiled full of emotion and walked closer. Then she put the bowl of medicine on the low table, greeted and said in a low voice, "Madam only had very little liquid food while being unconscious. This servant is going to the kitchen to make some porridge." Fang Su was indeed hungry, so he gratefully nodded and let out a soft, "All right." After the young woman left, he slowly sat up. The simple movement took all his energy that after sitting up, his vision had some dark spots. Fang Su's hands covered his forehead for a while to recuperate. He covered Tang Jiaoyuan with the thin quilt afterwards and then carefully moved across over him to get the medicine soup and drank it. The medicine was bitter, but it was just right to quench his thirst. After Fang Su finished drinking it, he sat leaning against the head of the bed. He didn't feel sleepy at all, but he felt fatigue, so he stayed on the bed. He thought that since his stomach was empty, he was probably feeling weak because his body was starving. He was just contemplating this when Bai Ping came back into the room, carrying in her hands a bowl of egg drop sweet soup. She carefully handed it to him as she said, "Madam can have some of this first as the porridge is going to take some time." Many thanks to Miss Bai Ping, Fang Su had drunk the warm medicine soup which eased the parchedness of his throat. He sincerely thanked her and asked, "Miss Bai Ping, how long was I asleep?" "More than one full day." Bai Ping straightened her brows and replied teasingly, "It seems that this servant had finally managed to get closer to Madam than before." Fang Su held the porcelain bowl in his hand. Upon hearing her words, his face turned red in embarrassment. Bai Ping found it quite interesting, but she didn't tease him any further, knowing how bashful he really was. Without waiting for him to say anything, she silently bowed and left the room. Fang Su looked up to see her shadow leaving, then he lowered his eyes to look at the steaming sweet soup and curved his lips in satisfaction. By the hour of Shen, Tang Jiaoyuan finally recuperate from his lack of sleep. /Note: Hour of Shen is 3 to 5 p.m. Tang Jiaoyuan looked for Fang Su upon opening his eyes. When he did not saw him in bed, his heart suddenly tightened. He abruptly lifted the quilt and got off the bed. The room was quiet and it was devoid of Fang Su's figure. His heart was immediately besieged with anxiety and couldn't care less if his clothes were messy. As he was about to walk out, he suddenly heard the sound of curtains moving. Fang Su was coming from outside and made eye contact with him. He blinked in a daze as he asked, "Jiaoyuan, are you awake?" Tang Jiaoyuan's heartbeat took a while to calm down. He walked forward and took him in his embrace. He squeezed him tighter before he finally felt reassured. Then he asked, "Where did Su go?" Fang Su crinkled his eyes and returned the embrace, but was too embarrassed to answer and was a bit hesitant. "Just went out for a little while." "How should I know that you would wake up as soon as I left?" Tang Jiaoyuan became worried again as he failed to notice Fang Su's awkwardness and continued to ask, "Where did you go?" He looked at Fang Su with worry evident in his eyes. Fang Su couldn't bear to make him worry and couldn't help the blush that came to his face as he answered, "Told people to boil water, my body, smell unpleasant." Tang Jiaoyuan was stunned for a bit and he couldn't help but let out a low chuckle afterwards. He even sniffed Fang Su's neck on purpose and looked at his blushing face as he said, "How come? You still smell so good." Fang Su pushed him but didn't really use any force. Tang Jiaoyuan enjoyed teasing him, but when he saw his blushing face turned into red, his smile was immediately wiped away as he got nervous and asked, "Are you not feeling good?" Fang Su closed his eyes and shook his head negatively. He leaned his body forward and snuggled up to Tang Jiaoyuan to seek comfort as he replied, "No worries, it's just that I still feel a little dizzy." Tang Jiaoyuan felt his heart ache upon hearing that. He stroked the white gauze on the back of his head and slightly moved his body sideways to avoid pressing on the wound on his forehead. At this moment, he was reminded of the danger of the other day. Up until that moment, he still didn't know what Fang Su had gone through all by himself, but he didn't dare to ask explicitly out of fear that remembering it might make Fang Su relive the trauma of that time. Thus, he remained silent and kept the concerns within his heart. He only carefully caressed the back of the head of the person in his arms. Who knew that after some time, Fang Su himself would take the initiative to take about this matter. "Xiao Yuan, I killed 2 people." Although Fang Su spoke without the horror and terror of the other day, his tone was still low, sounding a little lost and dispirited. Tang Jiaoyuan heard it clearly. He shook his head and couldn't help but spoke viciously, "If you had not killed them, they would have died in my hands." Fang Su became silent and seemed to be pondering something. Tang Jiaoyuan thought that he must be having a hard time digesting the thought, so he waited patiently for him. But after only a moment, he heard something that made him very surprised as Fang Su spoke calmly and without fear. Fang Su said, "If that's the case, then it was better that I did it with my own 2 hands. It should make you less worried if you knew that I am not completely vulnerable." As he said that, he lifted his head to look at Tang Jiaoyuan's eyes. "At least you should believe that I am also capable of protecting myself and not worry too much that you'd have less white hair." His affectionate words made Tang Jiaoyuan's chest felt warm as if a ray of sunshine spilled into his heart. After a short while, Tang Jiaoyuan smiled and kissed his cheeks, gentle but firm, then he replied, "I believe that you can protect yourself, but I still cannot let myself be less vigilant. From now on, I will make sure to protect you even more carefully." How could such trivial things as a few strands of white hair count as something? Afterwards, we would look after each other day after day. I will take care of you until your hair turns white. Black hair turning white was not something to be sad about when it's the result of deep affection. Upon hearing these words of affection, Fang Su crinkled his eyes and revealed a smile as he felt immense happiness in his heart. End chapter.